Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. PSG of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And happy Aloha Friday. Certainly, I like to celebrate Aloha Friday. And if you happen to see me out and about a little later, I'll be heading out to the gym to go swimming. I will be wearing this Hawaiian shirt, just something I do. And so you're always welcome to wear something colorful on Fridays as well. One little silver lining, I guess, with the pandemic, not so much that we're in our own rooms on a video session, but it's a lot easier in the wintertime to wear a short sleeve Hawaiian shirt when I'm in the house. Rather than having to make my way to the library when it's 20 degrees outside. But for those of you who may have been to winter meetings years and years ago, whenever it was that we last met, I usually just wear a long sleeve shirt under my Hawaiian shirt and keep my Hawaiian shirt on as well. In addition to being Happy Aloha Friday, today is National Swap Ideas Day. So if you are someone that takes a day off on every national holiday, you're probably retired or not doing very good at your job search. But National Swap Ideas Day, that's a terrific holiday for someone like us who are active in these job seeker support groups, because what it does is it helps celebrate the sharing of a creative or helpful idea with someone else, and that's something we like to do every week, and the groups that are like ours like to do that as well. And so we will be having Tamara sharing some of her important ideas with us as well. So great National Day for us today, National Swap Ideas Day. We have lots of other resources as well, in addition to meeting every week. We do have our LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group is growing every week. Always have a few new people that join. So if you are not yet a member of our LinkedIn group, please search for it. It is called PSG of Mercer County. Just search for that in the group section of LinkedIn and click the join button. And then one thing that I will do is I do make sure that anyone who requests to join has attended at least one of our virtual meetings or one of our in-person meetings, because we do like to just keep our membership of people who are interested in supporting or getting support from other job seekers. And so it's really a group for us, people in career transition and job search. And so if I do not recognize your name or can't find you in our membership list, our email list, I will send you an email in LinkedIn just to ask that person why they are joining and reminding me of which meeting they attended, and then we let you in. The real goal is not so much to limit the group, but to keep out the list collectors and the name collectors, people that are just in groups for themselves. But we do strongly encourage you to join LinkedIn groups in general and join ours as well to share job leads and share articles and posts and other information that could be helpful about your job search. We do also have our website. It is called psgofmercercounty.org. Nothing to join. You just put that web address, psgofmercercounty.org. Just put that in your browser. If you have not visited our website or haven't visited it lately, it is over 120 pages. It's over 120 web pages of content. And we do have an open jobs page, which is in two sections. One is job listings, which hasn't been very active lately, although there is a publishing editor position that we just posted yesterday. So if you want to take a look at that, that's in, they posted in Central New Jersey. They're based in Marlborough. So if you're interested, go check that out. And there's also links to different company career pages in Mercer County and the 6 surrounding bordering counties. So 7 counties are kind of our service area. Mercer, and that would include Somerset, Middlesex, Mercer, I said that already, Monmouth, I don't remember all of them, Burlington, I suppose. So go take a look at that. When you click on the county, then what happens is up to 12 sections or business sections open up. And when you click on that, like section could be not-for-profit or education services, financial services. There's 12 different ones. Then the different companies in that county, in that service area will show up. And then there are links to those company career pages. So we're not maintaining the list of jobs, we're maintaining the list of links to career pages. And those are all companies that could have current positions right now in that county. We have over 2,600 links to 2,600 100 career pages. So it may be a good place for you to create a list of companies, create a targeted list. So go take a look at that. Could be helpful to you as well. In just a moment, I will turn over the meeting presentation to Tamara, and she will be sharing her slide deck with us, and she will be sending that to me later, which we will be posting it. I'll tell you more about that later. We are recording the video for posterity or to return to it if you missed something or want to hear something again. But in just a moment, I will turn the meeting over to Tamara. We do ask, keep your microphones on mute until the question and answer time. And if you do have a question, as I mentioned before, use chat. Chat is in the upper right corner of your screen. There's a little circular icon with a tab. It's called a call out or a cartoon call out. So if you click on that, that's where you can put chat. Now, when you type a chat, you have the opportunity of sending it to someone or everyone. Please send it to everyone. If you send it to Tamara, I don't see it. And if you send it to me, Tamara doesn't see it. So this way, make sure everybody sees it and you can read the question. So you could type the word question and we'll call on you to take when we're ready to take a break, and Tamara will have lots of breaks during the program. Or you could type the word question followed by your question and I will read it. And the reason why we ask you to put the word question, it does help us see that you have a question among all the other chats that may be there. So a lot of people put their elevator pitches or their contact information. That's fine for chat, but the word question allows it to stand out. We'll do our best to not miss your question. Okay, and with that, I think we are ready to go, and I'm very pleased to welcome back our presenter this morning, Tamara Causley Robinson. Tamara, CEO and founder of TCR Coaching and Consulting, is a certified personal and executive leadership development coach, certified mentor coach, consultant, and motivational speaker. Her mission is to create a massive movement of professionals, especially diverse individuals who are inspired and empowered to rediscover their voice, to have the audacity to make courageous choices, and to boldly take charge of their lives and careers. Tamara has over 25 years of corporate experience, 20 of which were with PwC as a leader in the Information Technology Support Organization. She brings a myriad of transformational, managerial, and leadership experiences to her work. Since 2015, Tamara has been providing executive and leadership development coaching for organizations and individuals and partners, with several organizations focused on the growth and development of inner city youth in Trenton, New Jersey. Tamara's heart's work is through serving on boards of Urban Promise Trenton and Gamma Pi Delta Sorority Incorporated at the local, regional, and national levels. Tamara gained her coaching credentials through the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching in 2009 and is a certified master practitioner of the Energy Leadership Index. Tamara is also a certified mentor coach through the Coach Cachet program and has achieved her professional certificate coach credentialing status through the International Coach Federation. Tamara enjoys reading, going to the beach, and being in the company of friends and family, listening to music, and crocheting, which helps her to relax during stressful times. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome back one of our favorite coaches, Tamara Causley Robinson.
So thank you so much, David, for having me today, and thank you, PSG Mercer. You know, a fond memory of PSG Mercer, and it always keeps me close and humble, is I was once in your seat, right? After leaving the corporate realm, after several downsizing and outsourcings, I found myself sitting, learning about all the different opportunities in the Mercer County area, after being on a train in one direction or another for about 20 years while I was at PwC. So thank you for having me today. And so for today, we are going to talk a little bit about how to deal with the impact of loss and job loss with our family and the close relationships that we have. You know, no man, no woman is an island. And when we experience something personally, it impacts everyone who is around us, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I certainly have things that I will share. And like David has said, absolutely want to hear from you, your thoughts, your experiences that you are comfortable sharing with us today. And I know that we will all be better for it by the end of our time together. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I did some research, and this was actually right as the pandemic started, and I can't even believe it's been almost, over a year. This particular statistic stood out that, all of us are impacted in one way, shape, or form. And so potentially, just as we are growing up and taking on different responsibilities, 42% of men feel the need to be breadwinners in their homes, right? So feel the need. Does it have to be that way? Not necessarily. 42% of men feel that they need to be breadwinners in their family structure. And that is highly impactful when job loss occurs. And with the pandemic, and this number may actually be a little bit higher, unfortunately, that the percentage of women who are impacted by the increase of loss due to COVID-19 is astronomical, right? So when it comes to what our ideas and our ideals are around who takes care of family and how are we going to manage what's going on at home, or maybe even the types of roles that we play in the workforce. When COVID-19 hit, it hit hard. And it's very, very difficult to rebound from that, right? So there's probably a whole heck of a lot of other statistics, but these two are the ones that stood out the most. And so, how do we handle job loss? Well, we handle job loss like we handle any kind of loss. There's a lot of different models out there that come to mind, and this particular one seems to be something that kind of just encompasses all of the different reactions to change that happen in our lives. Although it looks like it's a continuum, there's absolutely, positively times where we can jump from one thing to the other. This is also very personal and something that I wanted to bring forward so that you all know that all of these reactions to change are, number one, normal. Number two, it makes sense that you experience them when you experience them and how you experience them. As the person who is impacted by the change that's happening, in this sense, your job, you are absolutely feeling all of these things in your own way, as well as the people who are around you, they are experiencing the same. Right? So I'll just slow that down just a little bit. You're experiencing this, they are experiencing this. You can be in one part of this continuum and they can absolutely be in some other place. And normally when there is conflict around it, it's because the both of you are in different places, or that there's not an understanding as to what is impacting you and how it's impacting you, right? So, I want to pause right here because there's a lot in it, and ask David if there's any thoughts that are coming up in the chat, or if anyone would like to comment on what their experience has been, relative to, what we have on the screen currently.
Okay, there's no question or comment just yet, but folks, this may be an opportunity if you want to just quickly enter in chat. And I believe, Tamara, you're watching it as well.
Yes.
So if you want to just type in there, or if you want to quickly unmute and say something.
Yep, just in case.
Yeah, as you're thinking about what she's presenting.
Yeah, exactly. There's denial, there's shock. There's so many things that come up for us as humans, right? This is not anything that is not normal, like I said before. And these are different things that come up for us. If there's nothing, I will continue. And so, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask quickly, how does one know where they are on the spectrum?
Yeah, I think it's really about being a little bit introspective about it, right? I think that being able to take a little bit of time just to understand yourself, right? And it really is getting in touch with your feelings, and maybe even knowing yourself well enough to know, you know what, am I just mad about this? Do I have fear around it? Again, the inner your inner self doesn't always reflect how you behave on the outside. So I will, for example, when I am fearful, you will see me doing. You will see me trying different things. You will see me actually in action. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who's fearful actually is doing something. Sometimes when you're fearful, you withdraw. Sometimes when you're fearful, you want to be more by yourself. You want to be, you might be a little withdrawn. So I don't know that anybody can tell you where you are. I think it's really about, just checking in with yourself just to see, and maybe even asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Right? Am I just like completely stressed about this? Am I confused? Why is this happening? Is it frustration? Is this like the third time that something like this is happening to me? I think it takes a little bit to know. And we'll talk a little bit about how to process some of these things today. But I think the first answer to that question is that you know yourself the best. And potentially having conversations with others can help you to pinpoint it. But that answer really is within you. Yeah. Yeah. And so, what tends to happen though, and we, again, it's not like once you go from denial to hope and enthusiasm and energy, doesn't mean that you'll stay there. Sometimes you go back and forth just depending on what's going on in the moment. But one of the tendencies that we have is to beat ourselves up, right? We want to say that it's our fault. There's something wrong with me. It has to be that there's something that I didn't do in order to be able to continue in this role. Many times, these are business decisions. Many times, businesses altogether aren't doing well. And so it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with us as individuals, one to the other. But that doesn't mean that we won't be in that space of taking it out on ourselves, right? And so certainly that's a part of it. The idea is, we don't want to stay in that place too long, right? We're going to absolutely feel it. To not feel it and or not address it delays some things at some points in time. But the idea is that to know that there is sadness that comes with it. We may feel like we could have done something better. And how do we rebound and get to that different place? How do we do that? And so that's what we're going to focus on today, right? What is it that we can do for ourselves, and how can we help those who are around us to be supportive of us in this space as we get on to a different part of our life, right? So here are some things that are on the inside that we can be mindful of, right? These are things that when we can do this for ourselves, it helps us to get solidified and fortified in taking those next steps, right? And so positive self-talk, right? Focus on something positive that you can say to yourself. Affirmations are ways of being able to talk yourself into things. You might not necessarily agree with them all the time, but being in the practice of speaking in an affirmative way to yourself has a way of turning turning your compassion up for yourself, as well as to make yourself feel better. I often have cards, there's apps out there that can help us if we don't know what exactly I would say to myself. There's lots of resources out there that can help you to start to foster that positive self-reflection. The practice of being kind to yourself, right? This is all for you, right? I often say, a little bit of grace and a little bit of mercy goes a long way. We're so, most of the times, very focused on doing that for other people, which is why community is so important. But we have to find those places and spaces where we can do that for ourselves. This focus on your best self is really about getting out of the comparison game, right? If I was more like X, this wouldn't happen, or if I was more like Y, comparison, I don't know who actually said it first, is the thief of all joy, right? We are all individuals unto ourselves, and there's nobody like us in the world. So why would we want to try to be somebody else, right? We really have to get out of that, and we have to work sometimes, to be in a space where we can stop comparing ourselves to other people. Not being in a job that we're used to being in, or losing our jobs, gives us an opportunity to learn and look at things differently and see things differently. We never really think that it's something that we really wanted to happen for us, but a lot of times changes in employment really allows us to think about things a little bit differently, and maybe even pursue things that are different. And then exercising some patience, right? So we want everything right now. We are definitely in a right now society, and we're used to instantaneous shifts, right? So it's definitely an exercise in patience for sure. And so I'll take a pause and ask, who has had an opportunity to do some of these things for themselves? Who has had, done one or two of these things and would love to share, or have an opportunity to share what that meant for you, whether it was in the moment or down the road? I'm reading in the chat. Valerie says comparison. Yes, absolutely. Any thoughts around taking care of your inner self? All right. I'm gonna keep moving. Okay, so here are some things that you already know. I'm certain of it, and sometimes we need to be reminded. Leaning on community of job seekers, right? So developing new relationships. We've had our old relationships, and sometimes shifts in our employment will create a space for us to develop something new. And so this PSG Mercer is a way of being in the company of other people who they don't necessarily know exactly what you've been through. However, they're experiencing it at the same time, or in different phases of their journey, and trying to get to a place of being back and employed, right? So leaning into this community is so important, and David has done an amazing job with keeping this community going, right? So this is very important, and being able to show up and consistently being here is something that absolutely is very helpful. So I know that's something that you're already doing. Getting involved in your community, right? I know that as long as I was commuting to Philadelphia or commuting to New York, that was all the time that I was not necessarily involved in my community. I did not know my neighbors. My neighbors didn't know me. You know, I knew very, very high level kinds of things, but I wasn't really living in my community. And so taking the time to get to know people, taking the time to find out those things that the community might need from you, and where you could be helpful in your community. It's a way of kind of stirring up those opportunities for the things that we are naturally very good at, as well as creating spaces for new relationships. Another thing that is great to do is build friendships around your interests, right? So if it's swimming, like David likes to go swimming, whether it's fishing or biking or hiking, you know, finding out what's happening around you that you really enjoy, and, you know, building friendships around that. It's amazing, and this is something that I do with my clients as well. It's in these casual relationships that sometimes our opportunity to do something different and or an opportunity for that next job opportunity could actually come through a casual friendship. It's because somebody knows somebody, right? And they know that you have this, but, you know, at the same time, you're a great sportsman, or you're a great fisherman, or, you know, you can do 5 miles in Mercer Meadows and it not really hurt too much, right? So this is definitely a way of being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Do something that's enjoyable, which also brings more of you to the conversation, as well as being less than 6 degrees of separation between you and that next opportunity. And of course, networking. Networking is an active sport, right? It's not something that can be accomplished just one and done. Being able to be in a space where networking is important and is happening at all times, or as often as possible. So it's more consistent, not constant. You know, that in and of itself is a great way to continue to build those new relationships. So of these things, because I know that many of you are doing these things, what comes to mind, and or how have any of these strategies helped you as you continue to navigate in your job search?
You know, I'll chime in if it's okay. I've been an independent business person for 7 years, and 2 of the people that I now spend most of my time with, and actually, Tamara, you met 1 or 2 of them walking, I met through my business networking. And one of them now, he and his wife will socialize with myself and my wife, so we've become fast friends. So here, these were a professional interest that I had, went to a professional business meeting, got friendly with a couple of people, and a lot of people in that group who I'll call occasionally, but to become quite friendly. And it's been very nice. Yeah, so new relationship I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know Valerie is on. She's like the master networker. I can sit at her feet all day. But there's so many things and people that I've met through Valerie, and the same through that she's met through me. We've partnered on a couple of things. She's helped me to land one of my longstanding clients just through one email. And I would have never been able to imagine that. And certainly wouldn't be further along in my development as a coach had I not responded to one email, but it was through a business networking opportunity that we met. And we were like, hey, you live in Ewing, I live in Ewing. Let's get together, let's have lunch, right? So it doesn't pay off right away, but the payout is well worth it, right? But we have to be active in it.
And any relationship, whether it's purely personal or professional, or kind of in the middle with job search, you're right. It doesn't flourish right away. You meet once, whether it's over a cup of coffee or at a meeting. You find you've got something in common to talk about. You might have a phone call or exchange a few emails. But over time, it does blossom. And it's kind of like, you plant the seeds in the spring, but by the summer or fall, you've got a nice plant. And so you cultivate it. Relationships you cultivate.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And it's a great reminder. It's a great reminder. I mean, I do it well, and it's a reminder to say, hey, it's time to get back and do that, right? Especially when we're socially distant. It's almost like it's like we're pushing against the grain, especially if we're not necessarily comfortable with technology and all that thing. But, that is absolutely something that we can do. Absolutely something that we can do. And so how to involve others in supporting us. Yes.
Can I chime in before you move on? This is Valerie.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to tell people that the key with networking is not to think that one meeting is going to be the end all be all. Because the way I got to Tamara was I went through Meetup, I found a photography event that I went to. I met some people at that photography event that then sent me to a group in Pennsylvania, which was a women in tech group, where I then met someone who was actually going to that group from Hamilton. She and I started to travel back and forth to that event together. She then took me to a BNI meeting where I met Tamara. So one thing can lead to another. You never know where something is going to take you. So, try to go to those meetups and you talk to people and you find out, oh, I'm looking for a job. And people are like, oh, I know something, or I know someone. So you just never know where something is going to take you. And it may, like they said, it may not be instant, but you'll get there sometimes by the squiggly path.
Not even sometimes. It is a squiggly path, right? I think we think in our mind's eye that everything goes like this, and that's the right way that it's supposed to go, or that's the way that, and we can also, when we think about comparison, we look at someone else and it's like, oh, I want that life. I want to do it the way they do it, or I want to have what they have. But, if you took some time to talk to them about how it happened, it's going to be ups, it's going to be downs, it's going to be twists, it's going to be turns, not explainable and still beautiful at the same time. Absolutely not always explainable, but yeah, it's for the long haul for sure. And just knowing that the more that you're out there, the closer you are to finding what it is that you're looking for. Beautiful. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. And so how do we involve others? Our support, our friends, our partners, and other adults. One of the first things that we tend to do sometimes is to not talk about it at all, right? We don't want to talk about it. If I don't talk about it, maybe it's not true, which is also understandable that we would have that reaction, but not something that's going to help us to move forward and to have some kind of understanding. And so having conversations with others and doing it the best way that you can is a great way to start. And then listening for their concerns, right? So when we think about that chart that we saw and all of the ups and downs, and certainly knowing what we want for ourselves and what we want for our families, listening to others and how it's impacting them is just as important as it is for them to hear how it's impacting you, right? And that's where you can get to some better understanding. It may be difficult to listen to that, but also know that it's a benefit to everyone to be able to have that ability to communicate. Do what you can not to judge yourself, and do what you can to not judge them around their reactions to what's happening, right? Because it's nobody's fault, right? When things happen, we cannot explain it. So do what you can to not judge yourself, and make time for those times to connect, right? You know, it's easy to say, oh, I've got this, I got that, and I got this, I got that. All of our lives are busy. Even when we're in a space of looking for employment, there's a lot that we have planned and what we need to do and have to do. Make sure that you're making time for those connections, making time for those times to check in, because that is just as important as everything else, right? Just as important for sure. Now, when we talk about children, you know, there's a sixth sense that they have. And I also think this about animals as well, right? When I have a dog, dogs know and children know when something isn't quite right. They may not necessarily be able to pinpoint it, but they know. So when we're going through these changes at work, it's going to impact and it's going to show up at home. So kids do have an opportunity, they just know, right? And so how do we help them? How do we help them? And so what's important is to have age appropriate conversations with our young people, right? Do what you can to explain it in such a way so that they can understand at any age. Do what you can to not blame yourself. It takes a little bit to get to that place, especially when it's not expected. And then the longer you're out and looking for work and not getting where you really want to be, it's easy to go inward and blame, and it's nobody's fault, right? So making sure that you share with them that it is not them, right? They are there, and you care for them, and you want them to help you, right? Because young people want to help. You know, think of ways to have fun, right? Think of ways that doesn't really cost a whole heck of a lot, but spending time with our loved ones is a currency that we often don't really have, right? And sometimes being in the jobs that we are in takes away from having that family dynamic. And, you know, we will absolutely start to, I'm just kind of reminiscing a little bit in my own, you know, when you're on a train and commuting, you're not living, you know, 4 hours back and forth. Maybe if the trains are on time to New York, that's not living. But, you know, it's something that I did and many of us do. And yes, it provides, but, you know, who are we and how do people know us and do they know us? And if we're really honest with ourselves, we will absolutely say that's not living. I mean, it's a great way to be able to survive long term, but what are we missing in the short term? And so potentially having that time to reconnect with our family is important, especially in those times, right? And so along the lines of what children like to do, they like to help. So let them. This is a great time for them to step up and be responsible, maybe beyond what they're already doing in the household or around the house, right? If you have to cut some corners, right? That bleeds into making adjustments in how we spend our money or how we do what we do. So you know what? If we no longer have a lawn service, there's some grass that needs to be cut, and here's a lawnmower. Let me show you how to do it, right? Allow them to help. It builds skills, it builds character, and it allows them to be in a space where they can be a part of the solution, and that they can be a part of moving things forward for you, right? So it's an amazing opportunity for that to happen. And of course, making adjustments. You know, if plan A isn't working, plan B, and if not plan B, where else can we go and what else can we do? You know, having those discussions about what different things we can do in order to, you know, be mindful of how we're doing what we're doing, right? It just really brings about those different thoughts. And exercising resilience, right? They bounce back, and so can we. right? We can get used to any new normal. And so when everyone is kind of pitching in and doing what they can, that's an amazing way to build resilience, right? So, when we're working with adults and connecting with adults, definitely lean in and be open. And with children, same thing, but I think it's making sure that we're being age appropriate at the same time. I know I covered a lot. I'm watching the chat. I don't see a whole heck of a lot, but would anyone like to chime in regarding anything that they've heard up until this point? What might you have?
Well, just from a personal note, and you and I've talked a little about this before, I think this is such an important topic, and I've been active with the PSG group for quite a number of years, and a number of members have come to me and let me know that their spouse is very frustrated with them. And the person would tell me, I'm trying and I'm doing these things. They're kind of looking to me as a coach, which I'm not a career coach, but it's very apparent to me that this is very common, that just like we may have gone through a work day without filling in our spouse or partner with the day,
right?
But they know that we're working. Now they don't see that in the same way when we're working to find our next job, which can take weeks or months. So yeah, I think this is very important, the communication that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I tell you, thank you for that, David. It's a thing that tests a relationship for sure, right? Sometimes you think that, hey, we communicate, yeah, we talk. Well, let something like this happen, and it will really test, and it puts that to the test, and it can be painful, right? Vulnerability, and when I talk about that shame, no blame and no shame. We blame ourselves and we want to do, and it's like, well, I'm doing my best and I know what it looks like, and having and being able to get to a place to say, well, what is it that you're looking for me to do? And this is how I'm doing it. This is the best that I can do. And oftentimes even getting to, what, this is not helpful for me, right? Sometimes it's too much pressure with you, all the pressure, right? So it's having levels of communication that get really real. That does happen. And there are often times, and I know that there's services that are out there that can help couples to have these conversations, right? A lot of times we might have social friends who are really good at facilitating, and maybe they might want to, help to have that conversation. Timing is everything, right? But it really helps to strengthen your relationships in a lot of different ways.
Edith put an interesting comment in the chat that children will also see that life has its ups and downs. It's important to teach kids how to deal with all types of problems when things don't work out as we expected. Cutting the grass can become not only a hobby, but as a business for a teenager to contribute something to the family. It can make them also feel included and good about themselves. So thanks, Edith, for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cutting the grass in the summer into the fall, shoveling some snow in the winter, there's a lot of ways that they can contribute. Absolutely, Edith. And you know what? It also sparks that creative side of things that they would either want to do more of, and who knew, or really solidify, you know what, I'll do it because I'm going to help, but I never really want to do this ever again in my life if I had my choice. But, at the same time, I know how to do it. So absolutely, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Beautiful. Awesome. So I'm going to move on. And so here are some things that all of us can do to help to manage our own energy, right? When we're used to being and doing, and all of a sudden what we are used to doing is no longer there, what kinds of things helps to keep us in the scheme of things and keep us moving towards something that's more positive, and keeping a routine, right? Having something that you can say, this is what I'm going to do at this time, and creating a space to stay in it and to be dedicated to it, right? So keeping a routine is very, very important in these times. Creating a plan. If you're a planner and a strategizer, how can you create a plan for what it is that you want to do? Some things can be a group activity, and then you go off and do some things on your own. But being able to be strategic about what you want to do helps to raise your energy and keep your energy, physical energy and your mental energy, in a positive light. Focus on your positives, right? So there's so many things that we're great at. And there are times where we feel like because we are no longer in this position, in this role, doing this work, that there's nothing positive about us. And that is not true. It is absolutely not true. This is the time to really focus on those positives. Focus on what you can control, right? There are some things that we can, and there's just some things that we can. And realizing the difference between the two is paramount in these moments. And we have the most control over ourselves. We have the most control over ourselves. Engage your support system. You know, I can't stress that enough. Whether it's one person, whether it's your ace, or whether it's coming to PSG every Friday at 10 a.m., right? Engage your support system. And remember, you are not your job or your title. I think this is the one thing that I had to realize. I've been through, I don't know, about five downsizings and restructurings, about 5 or 6 restructurings within the same organization, but we were changing every 5 seconds, it felt like. And the ones that hurt the most are the ones when my title was impacted the most, right? And I was like, what do you mean? But I was X and Y. It's like, well, we're that, you know, it is a descriptor, but it's not in our essence who we are, right? So we don't lose our ability to get work done because of the job that we no longer have. That is it. There are two different things, and to be able to embrace that is important. And you know, once I was able to get that, that really changed for me, and it can change for you as well. We are not our jobs, and we are not our titles. You know, we are much bigger actually than that. And so, you know, what are some things that you might be able to do to help redefine yourself, right? So start pursuing some activities that you have not, that you put on the back burner. You know, I might be too tired for this, or I might be too busy for that, or, you know, I always wanted to do, right? Pursue some of those activities and find out what, you know, those things are that can help you to be you 2.0, right? The brand new you. Try a new hobby, right? Or express yourself creatively. You know, who knew? I like to do puzzles. And I'm, you know, as a strategist, I love to do puzzles. I like to fix things. I like to figure things out. And I do that to relax too. But you know, who's looking for someone who strategizes? Who knew? Spending time in nature, there's just a way, if that's a thing, if you're like into the outdoors, nature has a way of making things all better. So when you have opportunities to do so, you know, spending some time in nature is important. Get some vitamin D while you're at it, right? And volunteer, right? Volunteering is an amazing way to, again, be out there and being of assistance to others. And it actually ends up feeding you as well, right? It can give back to you just as much as you give to it. So those are some ways to help to redefine yourself. A few more slides. Taking care of your physical self, right? Having some time to be quiet in a very noisy world. Taking time for self is important. you know, what is that balance? If balance, you know, I don't know if balance really resonates for me, but you know, where am I spending my time, and where do I really want to be spending my time? Getting proper rest is everything, especially as you continue to mature. You know, getting that good amount of sleep means everything for us. We're much better people when we're able to do that, and to, you know, taking care of your physical space and your physical self. Very, very, very important. Self-care and, you know, getting moving, you know, other than taking that walk in nature, you know, getting your heart rate going, that helps to get those endorphins going and motivate you. Eat well. You know, that always is very helpful for us as well, as we are continuing to take care of ourselves so that we can be our best selves. And so, yeah, so that's, you know, what I wanted to share with you all today. You know, in dealing with loss, and especially in the job loss, is having that attention to ourselves and engaging our communities is the most important thing that we can do. And so if there are any other questions, I'm definitely open to questions. And this is just a little bit about me. And I thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you so much, Tamara. But folks, we've got plenty of time. If you've got a comment or an observation or a question of Tamara, now's a good time to do it. And if you'd like, you can put that in chat, or at this point, really, maybe just unmute yourself and say hi to Tamara, and she'll do her best to address your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, Tamara.
Yes, hi, John.
I thought your comments about regarding your family and involving them in the process were particularly appropriate, because I personally think that in this job hunting business, one of the tenets is simply you just don't know where the next one's coming from. And I would say on my landed list, there's easily a dozen people who got their initial lead through, I would say about half the time, their children, and then 3 or 4 got it through uncles, cousins, whatever, and 3 or 4 got it through folks their significant others knew. You really just don't know where that next one's coming from. And the business of educating your family to something as simple as what you do, so that they can throw in their 2 cents and say, you know, my dad's looking for a job right now.
Yeah.
And come out that way. Maybe they get smoother and smoother about how they do that, but it spreads your network.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And you know, John, you're so right. People just know we leave the house and we come back, and they have no idea what the heck we do. Even when we think that they know what we do, they sometimes just don't know. If they don't do it, then they're not going to know. Yeah.
I think in that regard, you know, there's a little testing that you should be all trying. And when you're sitting around eating your Cheerios in the morning, tell me, what do I do, and see what comes back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. That's an interesting comment. I remember years ago visiting a friend and asking his son, who was, I don't know, 2 or 3, do you know what daddy does? And the answer was, he takes the bus. Now, of course, this was a toddler,
Right.
but, you know, sometimes, you know, he goes to an office or he's a fireman, or, you know, the kids know a little bit more, but all he knew was daddy takes the bus. But it's not so far that others in our lives don't know much more than that either, because we assume they know, or, you know, but it's a misconception on our own part.
Yeah.
Involve them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it goes from that sort of simplistic kind of commentary to one person in my network at Thanksgiving time, his daughter's come home from college and she's sitting around with two buddies who have also come home from college. Oh, hi, mister. Oh, well, I'm, you know, in between assignments looking for a new one. And this leads to an interview, and they create a job for them. Just don't know where the next one's coming from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the way also with young people, they have no shame. You know, they just jump out, they just tell it, and I think because we don't want people to know everything, all of it's like, no, don't say it like that. And you're like, oh, I'm glad they said that because here's what I'm thinking, right? So it's like, okay, just go ahead out there and say what you're going to say. It, you know, and I can learn something new too. You know, we can all be in that space of learning, but when other people speak for us, absolutely.
So yeah, I wanted to share something with everybody. How many stay-at-home dad there is here?
Mm.
I am too. Stay at home. I'm a full-time dad.
Okay. So here's my little story. I became a stay-at-home dad 15 years ago, and I was everything. And I still, I mean, I'm in transition right now, but I was everything. I was securing my kids, securing my family, and securing our couple. My wife's career really took off like never, and then she was more and more involved in her work, and she became one of the best in the world in what she is doing. I realized that I was a firefighter, I was a policeman, I was there to say what is right, what is wrong, and I realized, it took me years to realize that I was also covering up her difficulties. And by covering up her difficulties, I'm empowering her to think that she was right. And so I'm in a point right now to realizing that sometimes I became the problem. And what I say that is that I became kind of an alibi for, and I understand that I was a lot of time not really helping what I was doing in my transformation, in wanting to transform myself, obviously, because I was so needed at home.
Yeah.
But it was very difficult to address that as a couple. And so I'm in a point right now where I really, so I built up so many different projects. Some were successful, some were not successful, but I learned a lot, but they were based on my passion. They were not based on my old career as a civil and coastal engineer. And education became at the center of my quest. And but I'm not a teacher, you know, I'm not going to go to school again. So I guess my question is, how do you address all of this knowledge that you accumulate, all this empathy that you've been giving in your couple, and also toward the kids and their career, and all of that being a man and not a woman?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So if you have any idea, I'm ready to listen.
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you for sharing. You know, because it's something that we don't, I think in the US, have a great way of embracing that family is first, and it doesn't matter who is handling and taking care of the family, but there's just this thing that says, no, this is what your role is, blah, 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 right? So I want to say thank you for sharing that. And I think that as adults, when we realize that our passion is not what makes us money, that's a thing in and of itself. And how do we harness that in a way? Because like you said, you're not going to go back and go get your education to do X, Y, and Z. But I wonder how many not-for-profit organizations, just because they're not-for-profits doesn't mean that you can't make, you know, some money, right? So, you know, who could use someone who is like completely dedicated to education and really sharing knowledge with young people or whomever it is that is in your heart to share. And I feel like there's a place for all of us in something that will make a difference and be able to get to a place where you can have what you need, while at the same time still feel like you're giving towards that nucleus of family and being a part of this machine
So
that we find out there.
yeah, so I end up thinking deeply that change is not about money. Change is about people getting involved in their communities. And I end up to saying that I don't give a shit about money.
Right.
And it's very difficult when somebody else is completely driven by a success at work. And it's very difficult to understand that it's okay, because if the money is there, it's okay to just give your knowledge, your connection, your time to try to be the most dedicated person in the community. I started my own nonprofit. I built up a think tank online. I have an education. Who is in education here? Anyone in education? Who is involved with PTO, with the school PTO? Okay, so I as a man also, it was very. I mean, I still struggling to be involved in education with the PTO as a man. One of the women think that you want to take over the position as a leader of it all.
Right.
And I'm surrounded by women most of the time that have been giving up their career where they were competing with men in New York City for 10 or 15 years. And they found their man who is 5 or 10 years older, and they gave up their career. And the difficulty that I got there is to try to put like I say, like you spoke about America. In Europe, men and women are much more equal and most of the time both of them work, and they, having a tea or a coffee with a woman in America, it's impossible. So I was blaming my French accent, I was blaming my culture, I was blaming my exotic life in Africa, in Asia, and Latin America, and anyway, so I've been struggling with that also to fit in this woman world. And so you would think that you go in front of a human resources manager, and most of the time they are women, you would think that they would understand, you were an engineer and you work in incredible projects around the world, but after 10 years, you give it all for the family. And they say to you, oh, you haven't been working on, oh, you've been involved in nonprofit and education, but here it means that you're adaptable. Here you mean that you self-starter. Here it means that you can learn something from scratch and so on. They don't care. It's terrible. It's just so, and I'm like, I'm dealing with women.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you have any say on that.
Yeah, I'm empathizing with you, completely empathizing with you. Potentially I would love to reach out and connect with you one-on-one, right? And we don't have we don't expect that someone who has the same experiences would give us some kind of empathy, not sympathy, but empathize with where I am and see that there's more to me than this, because there's more to all of us than that, right? And it doesn't always work out the way that we want it to, but I think, there's it's very upsetting. I can't even articulate.
So
my observation is it's not a male-female issue. It's a corporate culture issue. And you have a unique perspective, having lived around the world, that there are different cultures, personal cultures and corporate cultures. And I've created my own theory that every hiring manager, every HR manager, at least in America, needs to have been unemployed at least once. I think that's more of the problem, that the corporate culture says, well, if you haven't been working for 10 years and nobody else will hire you, why should I hire you? Not because a woman is interviewing you and you've been the stay-at-home parent. So I think it's more along my observation than that it's a male, female, mother, father, parent, non-parent thing. I think it's a corporate culture. And if you agree with that, then you have to have a different operating way, take that perspective and operate differently and have different answers to the question as to why I'm not working. So I think that is a different approach you need to address. If not, then you're going to be, stuck doing a job search without an easy way to break through. But I think the problem is hiring managers don't understand there's nothing wrong with being unemployed. And certainly in the culture of the last year and a half, there's been a lot of unemployment, so a lot of companies should see it. Your story is different, having been a stay-at-home parent. So I think consider this as another perspective and see if you find that helpful.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I will venture to invite Maria, if I may, given her background in HR, on how to navigate that, because there's several layers involved. When you are dealing with the recruiter, for instance, they are they are technical buyers, so they don't want to take any risk because they have a job description that they want to fill, and if you don't match literally word for word, they won't move you forward. And even when you interview well, I mean, I've been on both sides, hiring or also be on, do an interview. The quality of the interview really does not tell you much about the quality of the professional that you're hiring. So I think maybe if Maria can maybe help us, because you raised a lot of question there, particularly for the long-term unemployed, and then you also have a sort of an accent, as people would say, and also ageism, because most people, at least here, suspect, are above 30 years old. So now, when you are 30, it seems like you're already too old if you're not a millionaire already.
Yeah, there's a lot going on currently in today's marketplace, I think. I think there's diversity, there's ageism, there's sexism, there's everything going on. However, the U.S. is actually probably catching up a little bit to the rest of the world. Oliver, you said, for example, men and women are equal and they go for coffee and tea together in different parts of the world, whereas normally here in the U.S., a male used to control and be the bosses and everything. Now you see a lot of women, and recently I believe they're doing more culture. So they're not necessarily looking for the people that are qualified for the position. They're looking for kind of anyone to fill a demographic to make their company seem like it's better, whether it's better for the company or worse for the company, it doesn't matter. The only thing I could suggest, as I put into the chat before, is you really need to continue your learning, whether it's online classes and everything, to continue to show that you're still up to date with the field that you're in, or even get involved in a entry-level position to get your foot in the door. And then you got to move up from there. And it's not about, and this way it shows that you're working. And when they ask you the question, what were you doing for the past 10 years? You need to be saying, well, I've been studying, I've been going to school, or whatever the answers that you could provide are.
Yeah, there is another thing here. Tamara. Tamara, sorry.
No worries.
Tamara would be your mother, but Tamara, sorry. So yeah, so here sometimes I ask myself, when you put yourself in in the spot where very few go in, but you know that change is going to come in. I wonder if there is not something to do around the coaching and the industry or the coaching, because I think that I remember saying, okay, I went through being a stay-at-home dad, so I know a lot about how it works, but there is not where the bread and butter is, because the woman would be the one paying for it. But in order to convince women to address the fact that they are allowing their men to take the role that they could have, it's another ball game. But I think there is a need for that in the next few years. Anyways, that's just
Yeah, I think there's always a need for it always, right? There's at the end of the day, there's no need for us to be less of anything and more in order for someone else to be more of anything.
Okay.
Right? And
Yes.
I think that when we're able to step into that in a bold way, a lot of the coaching that I do with my demographic is just that, because we have not been shaped and molded and raised to be, be able to stand in that, right? We sometimes, not all women and not all men, so I don't want to put any blanket statements out there, but when you're told to go be nice, right? Good girls don't do that, but boys, rough and tumble. If you gotta rough them up a little bit, it's okay, and nobody's gonna stop you, right? But if a woman does that, what does that say about her? If a boy doesn't do that, what does it say about him? It's we have to change the way that we are socializing our children and starting to believe that we're all capable of great things, and there's no need for me to be less of me for you to be more of you, right? And period. But that's something that people have to own and step into, and that also means that it changes the dynamic of their families when that happens. And you have to be ready for that too, right? So I mean, there's a lot to it, and yes, in coaching there is a lot to helping people to do that, as well as helping other people to see that more of me means that I can be more of me for you, not that it has to be me against you. Yeah.
This has been a terrific discussion. Yep. Very interesting discussion, very in-depth. Glad we had the time. And, we can use this even as an example. If there's a gap in society, in this case, stay-at-home dads may not have the same support or view in American society, maybe an opportunity to create a business of a stay-at-home dad support business or a stay-at-home dad network. I do have another friend of mine who is a stay-at-home dad. His mother is a senior finance executive at a big company. And so they made the decision, it made sense for her to be the primary caregiver, or wage earner. And they're comfortable with it. And I'm sure, Olivia, you are as well, comfortable with it. So I'm glad for that decision. But maybe an opportunity for you to start a website.
I'm not very comfortable in saying, you know what, I don't give a shit about money, value everything that I did, and let me continue all my project that I did. Now, the kids are grown, say, okay, now you need to contribute with money. And I'm like, can you let me do what I love to do?
Yeah.
I have another 15 years before 60 arrive. And I'm like, yeah, if there is a business coming in the middle, because I have more time, it will come. Just give me time. Yeah. And support me in the transition. But most of the time they are so busy to be successful in what they're doing that they're like, they go like very basics, like go back to work. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. So maybe, some takeaways from today. And I think, Tamara had some really wonderful points, and I'm so glad that she made the time for us. This is an important topic, communicating with our family and the people that are closest to us, because your job loss, and in the case of Olivia, it's not a sudden job loss, it was a planned for your family, but it impacts those close to you. And so in some cases, if your family is not aware of what you're up to right now because they're at work or they've got their day, keep them involved, and they make them more of an ally rather than someone who's not part of your process. And for you, it doesn't have to be as lonely a process. So, you know, I think you get the support and involvement of others close to you can be much more constructive and helpful. So I'm so glad, Tamara, that you were able to share this with us. A little bit of trivia for the group. The last time Tamara was able to present, and sadly it's on me for not having reached out sooner, she was our last in-person presenter on March 6, 2020. So I'm so glad that you were able to be with us then, and that you are with us today. And you know, a couple of topics we have coming up over the next couple of weeks can kind of be piggybacked onto this, and the theme of, you know, when you're stuck in a search or a struggle. Next week, career coach and author Ford Myers will be here. I'm so glad Ford will be here. 10 vital strategies to maximize your career success. So he may talk about something that may resonate with you specifically. And so that's what's coming up here next Friday morning, the 17th of September. I'm going to skip the 24th for 1 second, only to say October 1st, Deborah Wheatman will be here and talk about personal branding. So as you want to promote yourself and let people know what it is you do and what you're good at, and how you can be hired and how you can be helpful to them, you can craft your personal brand. So that's October 1st. That's 3 weeks away. And I certainly don't want to miss letting you know, next 2 weeks, September 24th, Bill LaChance will be here along with his partner, Sean Levinson, his professional partner. Money saving strategies during a career transition. He'll talk about health insurance, taxes, and etc., all those things. So Bill is, well, he's a financial planner. He doesn't have one of those traditional financial planning discussions of save your money until all end, and, you know, because in job search, you can't always save money. So he's going to talk about money saving strategies during a career transition. The two of them are going to talk about that. So that's what we have coming for the next 3 weeks. Bill on the 24th, and September 17th, Ford Myers, 10 vital strategies to maximize your career search, and October 1st, Deborah Wheatman on personal branding. Also, there are other groups in the area. Tomorrow morning, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey will be meeting, thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com. Alex Freund, career coach Alex Freund, will be discussing, can you influence the interviewer? So there's that case maybe Olivia was talking about. You're in front of the HR person and you're not able to convince them or influence them. So maybe this is an opportunity for you to swing the interview and discussion in your favor. Of course, there's our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, which is psgcnj.biz. They meet Mondays at 10:30 in the morning. And PSG of Morris County, psgmc.org, Wednesdays at 9:30. And also, the oldest continuously running job seeker support group is New Jersey Job Seekers, meets virtually every Tuesday evening at 7:30. And you can find the Zoom meeting link right in the PSG LinkedIn group. So that's what's coming up over the next couple of weeks for us. And of course, Yom Kippur is coming up as well. So if you'll be observing Yom Kippur, I hope that you have an easy fast and that goes well. Once again, thanks so much to Tamara, Causley, Robinson for your presentation and participation today. We are so appreciative that you could participate with us. In just a minute, I will end the recording, but I will keep the session open. We can continue our discussion and on any topic or the topics that we've had so far. But until just a moment from now, I will simply say, bye, everybody.